Good morning and praise the Lord, everyone. I am Karen Williams, and on behalf of our pastor, Dr. Byron T. Brazier, and the Career Development Ministry, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Are you ready for your next? What are those career and job search trends for 2022? Before we get started, though, let's bow our heads for a moment of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning just to say thank you, thank you, thank you, Lord, for what you have done, what you're doing, and what you are going to do. Lord, we thank you for being able to come together and to discuss what's important for those people who are in transition, thinking about making a career transition, or just want to know what is happening as it relates to careers and jobs in 2022. So thank you, Lord, for blessing each and every one who has joined us this morning, whether it is the people who are out in the TV land or the viewers or our panelists or the people who are assisting backstage. Lord, we thank you again for all you've done. In your Son, Jesus' name, we give you all the honor, the glory, and the praise. Amen. So I would first like to welcome Christina. Christina, can you join me on stage? And if Christina is not ready, can we have Tanya?
Hi, I'm Tanya Hinton,
Hey,
and
Tanya, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Karen?
Wonderful.
Pleasure to be here and meet all of you at the Apostolic Church.
Thanks for joining us. Give us a brief introduction, your branding statement, your elevator pitch.
Yeah, well, I am a DEI specialist. What that means is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am a recruiter. I specialize in executive search. And what I do is help corporations, large corporations, to find diverse talent. Typically, it is African American and Hispanic and female talent for roles.
Awesome. Well, welcome and thank you for sharing your time and talent with us. I think we have Christina. Christina, come on and join us on stage.
Hi. Hi,
Welcome.
Karen. Well, thank you for having me today, and just want to wish everyone the blessed of days. Again, my name is Christina Chikane. I have been in the educational and training area as a profession for the past almost 7 years. So I have personally helped a lot of adults of all ages either start their college journeys or I've helped them with training plans for career placement and advancement. Um, that's what I've been pretty much doing for the past 7 years. Strong advocate for education. So if anyone ever wants to discuss ideas, I'm always more than welcome to have that conversation. And thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, Anita, could you join us?
Sure. Thank
Hello,
you.
Anita.
Hi, good morning. Thank you all so much for inviting me today. My name is Anita Jenke. I'm a nonprofit leader with expertise in strategic planning, fundraising, program design, and impact evaluation. I'm also a career coach and program facilitator. I'm the executive director at the Career Transition Center of Chicago, which provides career coaching and programming to empower recent college grads and mid-career professionals seeking meaningful employment.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
And now, I guess, as everyone comes back to the stage, I would just like to say I hope everyone had a wonderful Valentine's Day. So happy post Valentine's.
Happy
Thank you.
Valentine's.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's jump right in. What are those important trends that are happening in 2022? What are they? Anyone jump right in.
I'm seeing a lot of people quitting their jobs, coming to the Career Transition Center because they want to find a new job. I'm seeing a lot of people looking for remote work, hybrid work, and better work-life balance.
Great. Christina, Tanya, anything to add to that? What are those trends?
Yeah, I would definitely. Well, that's exactly what we're seeing with the Great Resignation right now. A lot of mid to senior level employees are getting, tired, and they're looking to really expand. So they're taking a big risk right now, leaving their jobs, and going for more like Anita was saying, the jobs that are more fulfilling, that have work-life balances. So that's one of the biggest trends. The other, biggest trend is getting a lot of the youth right now into the job market. That has been one thing that the state of Illinois has really been trying to help those youth between the ages of 16 and 24 transition into work or transition to college.
That is so important, to get those youth, kind of steer them in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Tanya, anything to add to what's happening in 2022?
Yeah, I think that what I'm seeing is a lot of tech skills. So it used to be that people didn't really need it in all jobs, but now it's just become so critical. No matter what your job is, they're all asking for tech skills. So if you're in marketing, do you have experience with the latest marketing technology and social media? If it's human resources, do you know how to use various applicant tracking systems? Engineering, I mean, it's like everything is so tech focused. What are some things that they're doing to automate jobs and being able to get those? It might mean going back and getting a certification. It might mean taking some classes. It may be even getting a degree if you don't have one, or an advanced degree. So
Okay.
everything has just really, really changed as far as the technology focus of all jobs.
Okay. Thank you for that. In addition to these technology skills, knowledge, and as you said, sometimes certifications and degrees, what are other key skills that are critical during 2022 and moving forward?
It strikes me that there are some skills that are universal, I think, regardless of the time we're in it. And I think having very strong written and verbal communication skills, being collaborative and being accountable, particularly as we have been working, so many of us, remotely, and now we're moving into a hybrid environment, the ability to self-regulate, manage your own time, is going to be particularly important, and employers are looking for people that are capable of doing that. I think it's also super important that if you aren't familiar with like office storage platforms and different types of meeting platforms, you should definitely, you should absolutely make sure you're comfortable with them and be prepared and comfortable interviewing by Zoom or Teams, for example. I just worked with somebody last night who's getting ready to interview with a major hospital in New York, and they're going to use Teams, and he's never really done video interviewing.
Okay. Thanks, Anita.
Sure.
Christina, anything to add to what are the core skills, key attributes that are needed?
Again, I'm going to piggyback on Anita. Communication skills are number one.
Yes.
When you're interviewing, you need to have confidence that you can fit into that role. And I recently found myself unemployed, and it really helped me to use the skills that I've been preaching about. And when you find the industry that you love and you have the confidence to envision yourself in that role and to communicate that role to that hiring manager, you're going to have the best interview you've ever had. So I think that's really what it is. A lot of things, skills, obviously you're going to need with, technology. You have to today. You have to know how to use CRMs. You have to know how to use Microsoft, some of the basics, okay? But even having the best of skills with the worst of communication skills, it's going to be hard getting past that next door. So.
Thanks, Christina. And Tanya, you started us off talking about the technology tools and skills. What additional skills and or attributes are needed to be successful?
I think that the number one thing is flexibility and adaptability. Companies are always going through so many different changes, reorganizing, realignment, kind of looking at what kind of skill sets they need in the business. But the people that's really going to last are the ones that show that they can be flexible, that they can adapt to whatever changes the company's going through, and that they can be part of the solution. So sometimes people may have a tendency to not want to collaborate. And I will say that collaboration is one of the biggest skills that companies are looking for. Can you collaborate with others? Can you work as a team? Not just can you work individually? Another thing is, can you speak to senior leaders? Do you feel comfortable? And that when you're in the presence of management or senior leaders, do you even know what to talk about? Sometimes people are afraid to speak to senior people because they feel like they don't know what to say. The most important thing to say is how much you love the company and what's working right, and then how much you love your job and the things that you've done to make it better. So if there are things that you want to bring up that are not flattering, to senior leadership, it might be thinking about what are some of the projects that you would like to volunteer to lead that you bring up so that you can be part of the solution, not the problem.
Yes. Being a part of the solution is critical. I want to go back to Christina brought up cultural fit. What does that mean to each of you when people talk about being a good cultural fit?
I'll start.
Thanks, Tanya.
So for me, cultural fit has a tendency to be how well do you fit into the culture of the organization. So the organization has a culture. So it's just like any family. So it's like, do you, if it's a very quiet organization, are you loud and you don't quite fit in? Do you voice your opinions in a calm way if that's the way people discuss things? Or do you raise your voice? That's not a good cultural fit. Do you learn like the chain of command as far as who you need to speak to if there's a problem, or who is it that you can trust? Who is it that's mentoring you? Who is it that's sponsoring you? All of those things, all of those elements help you to learn the culture of the organization so that you can be successful. Learning what skills and in your role, as well as what skills the company needs, is going to be really helpful to make sure you're the right cultural fit.
Thanks, Tanya.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that phrase. I have some concerns about the idea of culture fit, because I hear from job seekers all the time, they said I wasn't a good culture fit, and that's left a little bit in the vague area. And I often wonder if there's some implicit bias there. I guess I have concerns about that. If I were to talk about culture fit, I would talk about cultural adaptability. Can you adapt to a culture? So, for example, maybe you are kind of, like every organization needs a range of, healthy organizations need a range of personalities. So we've used with our staff like DISC and Strong and things like that. And we've seen that we've got two people that are very outgoing and they are loud. And then there's two of us that are a little more mellow, including me. And you know what? I feed off the energy of the two more energetic folk. I think it's important to not necessarily try and fit in and not be yourself, but more respect the processes in place and try and abide with them, but not to lose your individuality. And like I said, I just have, when I hear culture fit, I cringe a little bit, because I think it's used as a way to exclude people, because I hear people getting feedback from recruiters and hiring managers about, oh, I wasn't a good culture fit. And I'm always like, what does that mean? You've met them for, an hour or two, and you're ready to say they're not a good culture fit. And I think being flexible, adaptable, gracious, and respectful is important. So I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian there. Sorry.
That's fine. We
that's
want
great.
your opinion. I want to toss it back to Tanya, being an expert in diversity, equity, and inclusion. When you hear Anita say that, oh my gosh, that's really a bias.
It is. It can be at times.
Yes.
It can be at times when they decide to disregard candidates because they're not the right cultural fit, but they actually have the skills, the technical skills needed for the job.
Yes.
But I think that when people are looking at companies, it's important to understand who the people are that work in that company and to see if it is a cultural fit. So, for instance, I had a client one time that it was a British hiring manager, and he had a Black Harvard graduate, and he was saying that he really wanted to downsize him because he wasn't the right cultural fit. And I said, well, what's the problem? And he says, well, he's too quiet. I want him to go out there and just be very direct and tell them, and he's very passive. And I need him to show strength. I need him to kick ass, so to speak. I'm sorry about saying that, pardon me, but that was the word that he used. And I had to let him know that with the man, I said, is he highly qualified and good in his role? And he says, yes, but he just doesn't work well through others. And he's not the right fit where he's brash and brazen. So I said, well, one of the things you have to understand is, first of all, he's from Britain and this is US, is to understand it's a different culture here. And that even though he's highly educated and does well in his job, if he wants him to be a little bit more, I guess, not more direct, he has to be given permission, and also being given that permission with the people that he works with. So it needs to be something that he speaks to him one-on-one with, but as well as the team, to say, this is part of his development. I want him to be a bit more direct, to be fit into our culture, because it's a consulting culture, and they tend to be like lawyers. They're very not always respectful. They're just very direct. They don't care if they hurt your feelings or not. But to be able to help him, he may not ever become what they are, but he can, speak out a bit more of his opinions in meetings, but giving him the directive and making sure that the team knows that this is what you're working with him on, and that they can give feedback so that they can get the right level of him feeling like he's himself and not misjudged.
Yeah.
So that it can work well for both parties. So that, to me, is how you can really help with culture fit. Not just telling the person to do that, but also telling the team, this is part of the development of what we're working on.
I like that.
Yes, thanks. Christina.
Yeah.
Want to move on to the next question and get your perspective first.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Were you about to say something, Christina? Were you about to add to the question, or can I?
I definitely am. Yeah, we could definitely move on. Culture is extremely important. Just want everyone to understand that culture not only exists in the, organization you're going to be employed with, and everyone should always ask about that culture instead of setting some kind of expectation about what you think it is. Because if you know what that culture's like, that job might not be the best fit for you, or it might be the perfect fit for you. So that's where you have to understand that is when you're interviewing, a great question to ask at the very end.
I think that's really good. And I think it's important to be direct and say, what are the most important cultural values? What is the preferred? Tell me how people like to manage and be supervised. Like, what's the existing preference? I think, asking deeper questions like that can be very revealing.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you have all given us a lot of gems and wisdom on how to get to that cultural fit. Moving on to the next question, I want to start with you, Christina. What does it mean when we hear it's the employees market? And that's something that I keep hearing right now.
Yeah, we keep hearing that all over, especially in the news. And I don't really think that's exactly the full case of it. There are a lot of jobs out there. You look at the unemployment numbers and it doesn't quite reflect it. But as for employees, when they say for the market, there are a lot of jobs, but there's also a lot of competition. So, that's where it is so important to, understand there's a lot of choices, but there's a lot of other people. So you got to beef up your skills and you got to sharpen up, everything that you have right now.
Thanks, Christina. Anita.
So what I would say when someone says it's an employee's market, it means that for the first time in about a decade, wages are finally moving up and there's a better opportunity to negotiate a better wage. And a lot of our clients are saying, I had to leave my company in order to get a better wage, and I can get a much better wage. I also think that due to the changes we've experienced as a result of the pandemic, I think that it is an expectation of the vast majority of job seekers and employees that they have the ability to work in a hybrid model, a couple days in the office, couple remote. And I know some of our clients have quit their jobs over that very topic, that if they cannot have hybrid, they're walking. And this is interesting. I've had 3 employers who laid people off and contracted with us to do outplacement. And a week or so later, they called back and said, we're revoking the layoff. We've decided that whatever their challenges are, having somebody in that job versus trying to find somebody in this kind of a work in this kind of a labor market, it makes it to our advantage to retain them and just to continue to work on improving their performance or whatever the issues are. 3, I've never in 12 years had a layoff reduction or layoff notice revoked and a contract for outplacement reversed. So I was like, it happened once, and it happened twice, and a 3rd time. So I think employers are having to check their expectations a little bit. And when they look at the job market, they're realizing, maybe I need to be a little more understanding. Maybe I need to find out what's going on with that employee. Maybe I need to work with them. This is not an excuse for going rogue and acting silly, but I'm saying I think there's more opportunities to negotiate how your work is being done. I also am seeing a lot of employees saying, you know what, I really like Chicago, but there is this amazing job in New York, and they're willing to consider remote, and I'm going to go for it. So I'm seeing people look at jobs in other areas. Some of our clients have moved to like rural Virginia and are now working for their companies or looking for a job to work with a company here in Chicago. So there's a lot more geographic flexibility. And I'm not talking about people working for Google or things like that. We're seeing people doing that for companies here, particularly in things like accounting and operations and HR, things like that. So I think there's more flexibility. And I also am going to make a prediction that starting in March, April, everybody's like, okay, pandemic over. We're in the endemic phase. We're all going to go back to work. Well, you know what? I think there's going to be a second wave of resignations because I'm already hearing from people, I've been thinking of leaving. If they make me go in the office 5 days a week, I'm done. So I think employers are going to trigger that if they force people to go back 5 days a week. So I think we might see yet another wave of resignations. So that's my prediction.
Okay. Thanks, Anita. Tanya.
Well, for me, what I'm seeing is it's an employees market based upon, I mean, I agree with both Christina and Anita. I think that more and more employees that are, I think that when they say an employees market, first of all, that usually applies more to people that are employed, number one.
Right.
It also tends to reflect people that may have more technical skills, a little bit stronger technical skills than the average. Those people have a tendency to go further and to ask for more money, or if they have a technical related degree. So to me, I think it's more tech related because everything's going into the automation piece and how we can replace people. So it's an employees market of the people who have jobs that's not as easy to replace, or probably even maybe at the bottom where, you need those frontline workers. But I think that it affects the people in the middle a little bit differently, of where they need more tech skills to show that it's worth having a human to do the problem solving that a machine can't, or to provide that extra warmth of customer service.
That's a good point. I didn't look at it that way, Tanya, but you're right. It's certain jobs. It's not just a blanket statement for everyone. If you're high tech, hard to fill positions, it's your market.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I think that's generally true, but I think there are other areas of opportunity. For example, we had a client who was worked as a case manager at a homeless shelter and got laid off, and decided that he was decided, I'm not going to work at small nonprofits anymore. And he went to applied at a large hospital here in Chicago, and they were looking for somebody who had experience working directly with homeless people, people on the street, used to doing outreach. And he went to work for this hospital system and doubled his salary. Doubled.
that's
Because
awesome.
he was willing to be out there in COVID times, going out, doing street outreach, going to homeless shelters. He was very well connected in terms of referrals. And so he was able, he was like, I don't think I can get this job. And I'm like, no, I think this is this hospital's first opportunity to do like very grassroots organizing with a homeless population. I think you can do it. And he did. And he's now been there a year, doubled his salary.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome.
Critical skills, like things that are really, niche, even perhaps like his.
The human touch, the things that a machine can't give you that warmth.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Awesome. That was just great dialogue around that. Now I want to go back to the whole big quit and the great resignation. We all work as coaches on some level. If you had someone come to you and say that they want to enter into that big quit, what would you tell them so that they are very strategic in their search?
Are you ready for this? I mean, that's the number one question. If you're going to take that, risk to say, okay, I'm done with this job. Well, are you ready to take the next steps? Are you prepared is your resume prepared? Do you have an idea of what companies you want to apply for? Do you have a plan? Is what you should really be asking yourself. Okay. So
I would the target companies and that action plan.
Yeah.
I completely agree, but I would like to add one other thought, which is, unless it's an abusive situation, I would say try and stick it out and don't quit your job until you have another job. Whether we like it or not, there is a bias against the unemployed, and there is a bias towards employed people. That's not right, but it is what it is, and you enhance your likelihood of landing quicker if you're currently employed. So I would encourage people to do everything that you mentioned, but also to what if we have another wave and we have a semi-lockdown like we did in December and January? That could stall things. Are you prepared financially? How, if you're going to quit before you have another job, do you have 6 months in reserves that you could ride that? Most Americans don't, let's be candid. So I don't advise, unless it's an abusive situation and you're feeling that you're being treated poorly, I would encourage you to be stealth. You can, like at the Career Transition Center, we can have you working with a coach in the evenings, weekends, you name it. We've got a coach at that time. So find a time that you can set aside. Also, can you treat your job search as a second job? Can you put aside, maybe the 20 hours a week it's going to take to get this new job? Prepare.
Thanks, Anita. Thanks. Tanya.
Well, I'd like to address the question of what is the great resignation or big quit? So for me, the great resignation or big quit is what we discussed earlier, of people deciding that they want to pursue their passion. And so they decide to resign or to quit. Now, some of these people are families, and because of COVID, they were taking care of children at home, and maybe they decided, some of the women, that they wanted to pursue that as a full-time career. So that could be one reason for the great resignation. Another is people looking at, they want to pursue careers that they always wanted. Maybe they were artsy or musically inclined, or like photography, or it could be anything that's totally opposite from their job. And they want to quit to pursue that full time. And I agree, like what Anita said, make sure you have money to be able to do that in reserves, because you may not make money for a while. So do you have in reserves for that next big win? Or is it something that you can pursue part-time, where you can do it, on the weekends or after work? And that way you can get the balance. But some people feel like they need to just quit or resign before they can pursue their dreams. But that's, to me, is what the great resignation and big quit is all about. People just deciding, or if they work in an office or in, let's say, a hospital, a nurse or doctors, that they don't want to be bothered with COVID patients anymore, or they want to use their medicine in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Tanya. And something that all of you continue to bring up, reskilling, upskilling, and things of that nature. And I truly believe in people need to invest in themselves. And I believe, as a coach, I personally like to help people identify their professional goals as well as achieve those professional goals. So if people are investing in themselves, what do they need to do to, first of all, identify when they need to upskill or reskill to remain employable? And also, what are some of those resources out there? We've talked about people typically don't have the 6 months saved. You cannot really depend on your current employer to provide you with all of the training and development opportunities. So how do you find those affordable resources?
Well, first off, if you're starting to feel not so confident about what you're doing and in your own skills, then it's time to learn new skills or relearn the skills that you had. Okay. That's the first thing I have to address. And investing in yourself can definitely be cheap. Community colleges, they have a lot of great free classes. A lot of it's online. There's a lot of podcasts that you can start listening to, even if it just starts with inspiration. One reason I feel like a lot of people end up losing the skills that they have is because they've lost their inspiration. They've lost their passion. They lost something that they loved about that job because of all the stresses in the world. So go back to the basics, right? Go listen to some inspirational music, some inspirational podcasts to remind you and to get your mind set back to right.
I think Christina froze up for a moment. We can come back to her. Anita, you want to jump in?
Sure, I've got a couple of things. There's a lot of low-cost, free online resources. I think of Khan Academy, Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, EDX, Skillshare. And if you're unemployed, you can look at getting a WIOA retraining voucher. And depending on the state, it could be worth, $8,000 to $10,000 to help you get, like a, coding certification or Six Sigma or lead certification. There's Treehouse. I mean, there's quite a number of online resources, and some of them you actually can get certifications. There's, and if you're willing to spend a little bit more, there's, like 6-month coding boot camps that I've seen some of our clients take, and has really helped them shift careers. So there's quite a bit out there that you can do online.
Thanks, Anita. Tanya?
One of the things that I noticed that people don't take advantage of is actually going to HR with their companies and seeing what the educational resources or reimbursement is. Sometimes they have free trainings that you can get through the company, or they will reimburse you to pursue a degree or to pursue a certification. So I think that going to HR and asking, what are some of the free resources or educational benefits that I may have.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people that don't even know that they have access to that, and they're not using it. And it's free.
Thanks,
I think that's
Tanya.
a great suggestion. Yes.
Yes, that really is. That really is. So let's move into the Q&A. And I did see a couple of questions that popped up. One of the first questions, does it mean that with it being the employees market or you having the tech skills or that niche, can you negotiate your salary benefits package? Anita, I think you mentioned that the
Yes.
gentleman that you worked with doubled
Yeah.
his salary.
Yeah. Whatever they give you doesn't mean you have to accept it. There are often tweaks. One of our coaches said there are 38 different items you can negotiate in a package. Flex time, PTO, sick time. There's a lot of things. Parking spaces. It's quite a range. I would say whatever they give you, evaluate it. Don't snap it up right in the moment. Take some time and look at it. Hopefully before you even start interviewing, you've done your research to find out what the range is for these jobs in your area, in your field, so you have a sense of what your options are. And there's generally at least a little bit of movement. I wouldn't just sign off on anything I was sent. No. So
Now, how
anybody.
long, you said that they should reflect, review that
Yeah.
package, then respond.
Yeah.
What's the typical length of period of time to be able to
I
do
think
that?
most employers are open, in my experience, to 2 or 3 days. I don't think that's unreasonable to ask, because I have to talk to my family. I need to, review this and get back to you with my, any questions I might have. And, I was working with a client a couple of days ago who was leaving one like executive position, assistant position to another, and asked to see the job description, and they're like, well, there's not really one. And she's like, oh, really? So she puts together, based on my interviewing, this is what I hear you saying. And I think that this, from what you told me, you've had a lot of turnover in this position. And I'd like to recommend that we talk about, a workload that might make a little bit more sense and that kind of thing. And so they, have been in dialogue discussing what that might look like. So that's, so she didn't just say, okay, I'll take it without a job description. And yes, it's 20,000 more than my current position, but there are some things we need to explore on this position.
Okay. Thank you for that, Anita. Christina, your thoughts about negotiating a package?
Always, just like Anita said, read that package before you make a decision. Just like if you get a job offer, make sure you read that thoroughly to understand what the expectations are on both parties. But yeah, you should really negotiate what is important to you, in terms of maybe if it's like hours, days, healthcare, and don't be afraid to. I mean, the worst they can say is no,
That's
But
true.
if you don't ask, you'll never know.
But
So
be gracious and not demanding. I mean, if you
Yes.
take that job, you have to
exactly.
maintain a good relationship with these people. So don't get hostile, don't get aggressive, don't if you're going to take the
No,
job, you have to go in with a good attitude, gratitude. You could really sour things from the beginning if you don't act graciously.
absolutely.
That's true.
Couldn't agree more.
That is true. That is so true. Tanya, did you have anything to add related to negotiating those
I would say
packages?
the number one thing you need to do is to research the jobs and to research how much they're paying.
Yes.
There's a lot of different websites where you can get some of that information to see if it's in line with what and that it meets your minimum requirements. I think that what is working for people where they are, like Anita's person, where they doubled their salary, is that employers now are only able to ask, what are your minimum compensation requirements?
Mhm.
Previously, you had to give your current compensation and you were only increased based upon your old compensation.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the only thing is, some people have a tendency to take it too far. So that's why you
Yeah.
need to research it first and then know what your minimum is. And if you're looking for an opportunity, I would always say, look at where you're currently compensated. If you currently have a job, add a little bit more to it and make that your minimum. Even if it's a 10% increase, that would be your minimum compensation requirement that you can go in and negotiate. But I think it's first starting with researching and knowing what is it that area is paying. If you are qualified, sometimes people want to negotiate the compensation before they actually receive an offer.
Yes.
So do not do that until you have a written offer. That is the only time. Otherwise, you look at where your compensation is now, maybe add 10% and say that my minimum compensation requirements are blank. You can negotiate once you have that written offer on vacation time, virtual versus in the office. But I would also say, if you know that you don't want to be in the office 5 days a week, you may need to do that ahead of time. Don't try to negotiate once you have the offer. It's not fair to them or to you. But then sometimes, clients will decide that they will do things at the end if you have a really unique skill set of something that's missing, whether it's customer service skills, or whether it's strategy skills or technology skills, whatever you have that kind of sets you apart from the crowd, they're willing to do more and to make you happy. Or it could be a sign on.
Yes.
Sometimes companies, even if they may not do a sign on before you start, but they may do one that you may not get the payout until maybe after you've been on the job 3 months.
That's true.
You
That's
can
true.
always ask for more, if they have gym benefits or the education benefits, because that's really important also.
Yes. Yes, it is. I'd like to add something. Make sure that whatever you need to negotiate, if it's salary, vacation, and a sign on, whatever you do, have that. You don't want to go back and forth with the hiring manager, with HR. So if it's 3 points, have all three when you get ready to enter the negotiation. I've had people, they get one thing negotiated and then they want to go back and say,
Mm.
well, I want to negotiate this too. No, no. You
Mhm.
need to have everything that you need to make a contribution to that organization. You need to have it when you enter into the negotiation.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yes. And to our listeners, our viewers, if you have any questions, whether you're on ACOG Plus, YouTube, or Facebook, please put those questions in the comments. We're going to continue with the questions. We have a few more minutes to get to your questions, so put them in your chat. Another question that has come up: what if you want to start your own business? What advice?
Well, first off, congratulations. Being an entrepreneur is an exciting role. You're going to gain a lot of great lessons in life just by doing that. So my first suggestion is to do your research and really find some inspiration to help you navigate that path that you want to take. And make sure you find a good mentor. If you're going to go in business, you need someone who's been in business that can help guide you through the steps that they took and give you the resources that you're going to need. So I always say, reach out to people. Networking is important as well.
Great. Thank you, Christina.
And I would like to mention, I think it's really good to start off with taking classes with the Urban League. They have a wonderful entrepreneurship program where you can learn more about the business before you actually start generating revenue, and you can start taking those classes while you already have a job. Another thing is the Small Business Administration and the Women's Business Development Center and other women and minority business development council. I think all of those are great resources to start preparing. I'd say at least maybe start preparing 6 months before by taking these classes so that you're ready and you kind of understand what entrepreneurship is all about. One of the things that people like about entrepreneurship that I think really needs to be addressed, seeing that I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, is I can make my own schedule. If you want to make money, you're available all the time, whenever people want you. It's not about, that's if you really want to make money, because money doesn't come when you want it or when you need it. So when you're really trying to get your name out there, it may require longer hours. It's going to be a lot harder sometimes than maybe working for a corporation, because you have to do everything. In a corporation, there's people where you only do one segment of the role, and there's other people that you interact with. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, and if it's a solo, you have to do everything. Or you may want to think about having partners so you can divide up the responsibilities, and it makes it a lot easier. But don't become an entrepreneur because you think you're going to work less, unless you have a spouse or someone that can take care of all of the full-time commitments and bills. That's the only way you're going to be able to have the flexibility to work whenever you want to work. But congratulations. The hard work is ahead. And I always say, when you're a good entrepreneur because you see the alignment of God in your life. When you're out of alignment with God, things you may have some troubles with your business. When you're in alignment, you will find that you pray a lot more as an entrepreneur than you ever did as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Tanya. Anita.
Wow, you all have both given some great advice, and I endorse it completely. I think as in a job search, preparation is key. Start working on a business plan. Do an analysis of your competitors, like who's like you, what is going to differentiate you. What do you bring that's different and a twist that gives you the sense that you are filling a market need. Look for collaborating partners. I think these are all great suggestions. And I absolutely endorse using things like the Women's Business Development Center or the Urban League, because you can get some really good foundational understandings. They have classes, they have resources. Occasionally they have access to small grants to help people get off the ground.
Yeah.
And these are really important.
Thanks, Anita. Now switching over to if you're a full-time employee and your salary is higher than what websites are saying the role or the job that you're interested in transitioning to, how do you handle that? And to me, without additional information, what comes to mind is maybe someone has an encore career that they want to get into or their dream job. But what do you do if your salary is currently higher than what the website or the range is for that role that you're moving into?
I think you feel good about yourself and say,
So
hey,
this is
I'm
where your
moving.
negotiation skills.
But I think you also need to look at job descriptions of other roles that's comparable to yours and that next level and see what the requirements for those roles are so you can prepare to keep going to that next level and keep yourself current. I think that sometimes people, they feel like they're paid well and they decide that they don't want to continue to invest in themselves. So investment, I think, is key to stay there.
Thanks, Tanya. Christina, did you want to add something to that?
I definitely would have to say that's where you got to sharpen your negotiation skills. If they're making their salary less than where you're at, there has to be a reason for that. And maybe the website's looking at it as a national average, but that doesn't mean in one city, someone doing that job isn't going to be getting paid more. So don't look at those sites as being the truth of all.
Well, I think if you go on something like ONET, you're going to see national, averages. You're going to see by state, and what they're paying in, like, say, I don't know, Carbondale versus Chicago might be quite different. So I think you have to look at those factors. And I guess I would wonder, if you're looking to change jobs, is it about salary? Is it about working conditions? Are you looking for a different set of cultural values? I guess I'd want to know what you're thinking about wanting to make a move if you're making what seems to be at the top of the scale.
Thanks, Anita.
Questions to ask yourself. Sure.
Thanks. Going back to what Christina said, sharpening your negotiation skills. What are some things, if you are at the top and you want to retain that salary, what are some of those things that you need to do in negotiating when you're moving to this new role? What can you bring up?
Your experience, your value. All right. You got to know what your self-value is before you go into that negotiation. Okay. That's key. If you don't know what your self-worth is, what your experience is worth, then you're not going to have good results. So that'd be my only advice.
Okay, thank you for that, Christina. I want to bring up something as it relates to seeking a new role. And again, I don't think that the young lady who put that question in, I don't think that she's added anything to it. My background is learning and development, talent development. If I were to move into an HR generalist role, yeah, there are some things that I can do, going back to what Tanya said, investing in myself, getting some HR certifications. However, is it realistic for me to expect, if I'm moving into a different position, is it realistic for me to expect to be able to retain that salary that I have as a learning and development professional if I'm switching over into a dream job or a different encore career? What are your thoughts about that?
Unfortunately, you can't expect to get the same salary in a role that you're going to have to learn and to develop with. It would definitely be nice if that were to happen. But again, this is where your negotiation skills come intact. What experience you're bringing over to that job. All right. What are the assets that you're bringing to that position? If you don't know that and you're just saying it's my dream job and jumping into it, well, like they say, when you jump in and you don't know what you're jumping into, then don't expect to have the best experience. Okay. So get on it. Know what you're bringing in. And just hold a value to that. Never let that go.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. Anita. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Tanya.
after Anita.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about what Christina was saying too, and then thinking about if you are at the top, some of the mistakes that I see a lot of people making is they just go for more higher compensation, but it's actually a lateral move. Or sometimes it can even title-wise be a lower. Title-wise, it looks like you've taken a step down, but they're saying, but I make so much more money. Sometimes it can be career suicide. So it may take going to that next level where you feel somewhat unfamiliar, but you can do the job. But maybe you have an MBA a new MBA, and you've never done that before. And so it's a stretch role for you. But it's like you've been building your career to be able to do that. But now you have the MBA and being uncomfortable. And I think sometimes in order to keep moving up, people go into roles that are more senior, that next level up all the time. If it's a totally different career path, it may require looking at what the average compensation is for that field, and then making the determination, can you endure a pay cut? Does it meet your goals of where you want to be in life? How is it going to affect, if you like travel, how will it affect your travel budget? If you like eating out, how will it affect that?
Yeah.
If you like a big house, well, you may need to downgrade to a smaller place. But if it's within your same career, I think that's what people need to do to keep going to that next level. And they just need to go on and do it and research and make sure that they have the resources, meaning internally. So if it's at your job or where you're currently employed, are people there to help to support you? And do they have even some training or a coach that can help to support you? If it's going into a new organization, but in a similar field, are the people really invested in you to want to help you to succeed, to be successful in that new role?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. Anita.
So we see a lot of people interested in shifting careers, maybe moving from corporate accounting to nonprofit accounting, just as an example. And when you shift fields, I've seen some that are more dramatic than that. We saw somebody went from sales into becoming a psychologist. You may have to take a little bit of a salary step back to make the transition as you build your new skill sets that'll then position you for growth. So I think you have to decide if are you willing to take a little bit of a pay cut to shift away from something you're not satisfied in to something you are satisfied? You may or you may not have to take a pay cut. But I think if you're making a big career transition, you may have to, and that's something you have to kind of grapple with.
Thanks, Anita. And thank you, ladies. I have enjoyed the discussion, the dialogue. I want to be respectful of your time and our viewers. So thank you, viewers and panelists, and all of the backstage help that has worked to bring this together. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.